In the shadowy realm of deception and fraud, America and its history have produced some remarkable master swindlers. These fraudsters are renowned for their audacious scams, astounding escapes, and at times, even bizarre twists in their life stories. From the infamous Charles Ponzi to the unforgettable Bernard Madoff, let's take a look at the lives and crimes of some of the most famous American con artists. 1. Charles Ponzi, the father of the Ponzi scheme. In the Roaring '20s, Italian immigrant Charles Ponzi stunned the financial world with his infamous Ponzi scheme. Ponzi promised thousands of investors astronomical returns on international postal coupons, claiming these coupons, when converted to dollars, were worth more than other foreign currencies. He convinced investors that they could make substantial profits from currency exchange rate differences. What Ponzi concealed, however, was that he used the money collected from new investors to pay returns to earlier investors. It was a classic pyramid scheme that eventually collapsed. Ponzi amassed a fortune of $20 million in a short period, only to die penniless. Nevertheless, his name lives on as the founder of the notorious Ponzi scheme. 2. Bernard Madoff, the architect of the biggest fraud. Bernard Madoff, with his initials embroidered in gold thread on his slippers, is considered one of the most infamous master swindlers in modern history. He executed a massive pyramid scheme that even Charles Ponzi would envy. Madoff siphoned off approximately $50 billion from investors, an unprecedented scale for this kind of fraud. Investors grew suspicious as the financial crisis erupted in full force, and they attempted to withdraw their funds, only to discover it was not possible. Madoff was sentenced to life in prison. 3. Frank Abagnale, the real-life Catch Me If You Can. Frank Abagnale's life story served as inspiration for the movie Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Abagnale began by writing counterfeit checks and quickly escalated to forging checks, passing them in various countries. He traveled while posing as a false pilot and managed to accrue millions of miles for free. He also posed as a pediatrician in a hospital for a time. After being apprehended and serving his sentence, Abagnale entered the world of fraud prevention. Today, he is the owner of Abagnale & Associates, a company specializing in fraud prevention. 4. Graham Hawksworth, the scientist who went astray. Even scientists are not immune to fraud, as demonstrated by Graham Hawksworth. This British forensic document examiner ended up behind bars due to his greed-driven actions. Alongside partners, he produced counterfeit American bonds worth $2.5 billion. These bonds were issued during the Chinese Communist Revolution. In 2001, they were caught when they attempted to cash $25 million in bonds at a Canadian bank, revealing spelling errors on the bonds. 5. Han van Meegeren, the artist anti-hero. Han van Meegeren, a wealthy Dutch artist, became famous for his forgeries of paintings by Johannes Vermeer and others. After World War II, van Meegeren was arrested for allegedly selling a Vermeer to Hermann Göring, which was considered collaboration. However, van Meegeren claimed that he hadn't sold a genuine Vermeer to Göring, but rather a forgery of his own making. In the ensuing chaos, he revealed that the famous work, The Amausgangers, at the Boijmans van Beuningen Museum in Rotterdam, was a forgery created by him. He sold newly discovered works by old masters to art dealers and earned millions. 6. Gregor MacGregor, the inventor of an imaginary land. Scottish. Gregor MacGregor, who lived from 1786 to 1845, devised one of the most astonishing scams ever, a fictitious land called Poyais in Central America, of which he claimed to be the ruler. He sold everything imaginable for this non-existent land, including shares, land, and bonds. Poyais even had an imaginary capital and currency. MacGregor managed to convince numerous Scots to invest their hard-earned money in this land. The first ships carrying Scottish immigrants set sail in 1823 to this promised land across the Atlantic. Unfortunately, they were deceived. MacGregor fled to France, where he attempted the same trick again but was apprehended this time. He spent his days in Venezuela, where he was regarded as a hero. 7. Nick Leeson, the man who brought down Barings Bank. Nick Leeson became world famous because, as a securities trader, he single-handedly caused the collapse of Barings Bank, the oldest and most prestigious British bank. He speculated on the Japanese stock market with Barings money, becoming the bank's darling due to his profitability. However, after the Kobe earthquake, Leeson lost $1.4 billion, twice the capital of the bank. He went to prison but is now a free man. His story was adapted into the movie Rogue Trader. Perhaps Jerome Kerviel, who pulled off a similar trick at French bank Société Générale, might consider writing a bestseller too. 8. Victor Lustig, master of counterfeiting and deceit. Victor Lustig was a Czech immigrant fascinated by counterfeiting. He even sold machines that purportedly produced money. Later, he set up a printing press with a chemist to create counterfeit money. Lustig died in the notorious Alcatraz prison. One of his most famous tricks was selling the Eiffel Tower. In Paris, a rumor circulated that the Eiffel Tower would be dismantled after the World Exposition. Lustig posed as a government official and approached scrap dealers. He received money from these individuals and escaped prosecution by pretending to be a corrupt official. 9. René van den Berg, the creator of a Polder pyramid scheme. René van den Berg, also known as the Wonder Investor, devised a Polder pyramid scheme in which he promised a group of confidants high returns on their investments. These returns were paid from the contributions of new investors. Van den Berg was sentenced to 5 years in prison and has since been released. Approximately 1,400 victims lost a total of at least $70 million, with some of the money still unrecovered. 10. Remco K. and Danny V. The Palm Invest Fraud. Better known as the Palm Invest Fraud, these gentlemen were sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for operating a fraudulent real estate fund of the same name. They swindled hundreds of investors out of approximately $31 million. Investors believed their money was being invested in real estate in Dubai, but the pair embezzled around $20 million. Much of this money was spent on luxurious villas and boats. Palm Invest is now bankrupt, and the trustee is working on winding up the case. American history is replete with colorful characters who mastered the art of deception. While some served their sentences and paid for their crimes, others will forever be remembered as the master swindlers who astonished the world with their audacious scams and cunning tricks. Their stories serve as warnings and reminders of the thin line between genius and fraud in the world of deception.